Yes, so my name is Alexander Frey from Fresenius Kabi, and I would like to present you today what we've done as digitalization beyond serialization, and particularly in the case of RFID, where we have some products on the market. So I think most of you won't know Fresenius Kabi. Fresenius Kabi is a German pharmaceutical company, or basically originally German, around 41,000 employees, a bit more than 7 billion euros of sales, and part of the Fresenius group of companies, Fresenius Medical Care, maybe a bit more popular, also part of the Fresenius group of companies. Now, since most of you don't know Fresenius Kabi, that's probably the reason, because we're having mainly products for healthcare professionals, so IV drugs, infusions, medical devices, and all these things. And we're not having, or we're hardly having any end-user products, maybe some enteral nutrition, clinical nutrition, but all the rest goes to hospitals, to healthcare professionals. Within Fresenius Kabi, we have a department dedicated to product digitalization and serialization. Originally, we were the serialization program. About 2 years ago, founded a serialization program, and about 2 years ago, we were handed the additional responsibility for product digitalization topics. And I'm part of this department since approximately 6 years now, and my role is focusing on the production equipment, so supporting the sites and implementing serialization on the line, in the site, and getting things running there. So I know that most of you think or hope that after serialization everything will be over. And we as Fresenius Kabi believe it's not. We think serialization was just the beginning, because what serialization did is it enabled the digital transformation. It enabled digital production processes, printing whatever an expiry date, no longer with embossing or with a typewriter, but with digital printing, and opening the door for more processes. Stefan had presented earlier about the electronic patient information, utilizing the serialization code. Marcel had just mentioned also data matrix opens the doors to everything. And we have two projects where we're actually also going more digital. One is that we're using data matrix barcodes on primary packaging now. So the roadmap is that we would like to use data matrix on all products on the primary packaging, data matrix containing GTIN, ideally batch and expiry as well, to enable the healthcare professional in the hospital to document whatever he had used given to the patient just by scanning the code. So nothing to write into a manual file or into an electronic file by typing. You just scan the data matrix with the GTIN, batch expiry. You can do a sanity check if the product has been expired, and it's documented to the patient's electronic patient record with no effort. And the other thing, and that's what I'm going to talk a bit more now, is the use of RFID smart labels for medications. Basically, that's been about 3 years ago. We were approached by some US hospitals that they're having so-called procedural trays or crash cards, where there's a range of certain products in. So, say, 5 ampoules of product A, 10 vials of product B, and whatever of other products. And the process is basically in these hospitals that when there's something happening, for example, in the emergency room, they're not going to a cabinet removing whatever they need. They take this crash card, having these products in, they use whatever they're using, and after the patient the treatment of the patient is completed, they return the whole crash card, or the remainder of the crash card, this tray, back to the hospital pharmacy. The pharmacist inside the hospital checks which products or which quantity of products should be in there, checks what's actually in, replenishes it, and also checks if products have been expired, because they're taking random products, so you don't know, you're not knowing that after 1 year everything has been taken or used. And this very manual procedure obviously takes a lot of time. We've done studies saying about 15 to 30 minutes per tray, and there are hundreds of trays actually circulating inside the hospital, so that's a lot of effort. And the idea was, if we would have a way of checking in one shot what's in there and how it's in there. And that's where RFID comes into place. So all the products inside the tray are labeled with an RFID tag. You put the tray into an RFID reader, it will tell you, okay, this is what's in, this is what's supposed to be in, meaning this is what's missing. You replenish these missing products and then read again, confirmation, yes, all is in and nothing has been expired, or if you have a more sophisticated system, also recalled. Now, in the beginning, we thought, this is going to be rather simple. So we had the experience from serialization, particularly Russia, which was a nightmare for everyone, I think. We think the electronic patient leaflet, sorry, Stefan, we think that's a rather simple job, a rather quick win, because it's not interfering with so many systems. It's more a software thing and nothing else. We had the experience with data matrix on primary, which was also, yes, we did need to equip some lines, but we thought, okay, this is also, it's going to be similar. It actually is not, it's a bit more towards the complexity, but there are also some things which were rather simple. I mean, if you're using an RFID label, you can still use the same label. You don't need to buy a new labeler because it's just a label, a bit more thick, but yeah, you can deal with it. Now, when it comes to RFID or the RFID tagging of hospital products, right now on the market, there are two concepts. One is the hospital-based tagging, means the hospital buys a standard product of whatever, gets from their solution provider, they're taking RFID labels, which are generic, so it's just an RFID EPC, a serial number of the tag, nothing else. The operator applies this to the individual unit of dose and then needs to enter in a software solution the product, the batch, the expiry, whatever metadata they're using. And the software then links this EPC of the tag to the metadata, which is then typically stored in the cloud. Also, there are manufacturer-tagged products available with this approach. So in this case, the manufacturer applies the RFID labels to whatever 10,000 products and links them to this one batch, one SKU in the cloud. But also, there's a more, say, holistic approach available. And this means if you have manufacturing tagged products, we as a manufacturer, we know already the G10 we're using. We know the batch which is going to be inside this bottle. We know the expiry. And I mean, the serial number, yes, you need to have one. So our approach was, okay, but why don't make this more holistic? Write everything in the tag, because then you're not in this vendor lock solution, vendor lock situation, which you're in here, because here it's one cloud repository of your solution provider. And here you could just read anything from the tag. You don't need to have a cloud solution. And if you're using one, you're still not in a vendor lock solution. And this is actually where we went for. So we decided we store everything inside the RFID in a generic format, in a standardized format, using GS1 standards, because this enables all interested stakeholders to read, not having to be in a contract with whatever, not having to use a solution of a certain provider. And for us, it's not much more effort. We're having a RFID SKU anyway, and if we're encoding 1, 2, or 3 sets of data into the tag, doesn't make too much of a difference. So this means we have here the physical product label with the linear code, and in our case also the data matrix code, which contains G10 batch and expiry. And we have the RFID tag inside this label. And this contains the EPC, and inside the user memory it contains the G10, the serial number, the expiry, and the lot. The EPC, that's also a unique identifier that's specific to RFID labels, but since we want to be user-friendly or generic, we're also using normal SG10s. And with this approach, we can do the direct read, that's very obvious. But we can also do the cloud, we're also cloud compatible. I will come to this later because we still need to send the data to the cloud so that the cloud system can work with it. There are some Some labs which do perform tests. Are the labels very readable? I will also come to reading situations later. So we partnered with Axia to have our labels lab tested to be sure that it's going to work in every situation. Now, being more of a production guy, this is the production workflow. So we have our normal labeler, the one we've been using for the last, 20 years. And this labeler applies the labels in the way as in the past. It's printing physically the batch and expiry onto the labels, applies the label to the vial, to the ampoule, to the container. Then we have a writer, which writes the data into the RFID tag. And here we need to consider two scenarios. One is we're writing everything, so the full SG-tin batch and expiry. And the other one is we're writing only lot and expiry into the tag. And this is for a reason. RFID cycle times depend on the quantity of information you're writing into the tag. So if you have a high-speed production line running 600 products a minute, it's sometimes not possible to write the whole stack into the tag, but you need to reduce the information. We didn't expect this actually, but we conducted several tests and that was the outcome. And it's also depending on the tag type. So there are certain tag types. Some have faster chips, some have slower chips. So you need to be aware. And this means for high-speed production lines, for example, we're having the approach that we have the SG-tin already pre-encoded by the label supplier, and we're just adding the batch variable data in this case. After writing, we have a reject zone. As for any visual inspection, we're reading again. Is the tag damaged? Is it readable? Is everything correct? Then reject if not, and otherwise continue in the good path. And in parallel, write all the data into our serial number repository. And that's important for the second slide, because if you're thinking about a cloud solution, an RFID cloud solution, what's going to happen is the RFID system in the hospital, you will put the products in. The GS1-based systems, they will just read the GS1 code and they're happy. The cloud-based systems, they will read the EPC of inside the RFID label, and then they will query their cloud solution, what's behind this EPC. And for this, we have a connection to their cloud system. So for these products, we're sending the metadata, meaning the SG-tin batch expiry, together with the EPC to their cloud system. So when the system queries, the hospital system queries the cloud, it gets a useful return, and the operator knows the product or what to do with the product. Of course, we've taken some learnings. One very important thing, and it's obvious, but we didn't expect it to be that challenging. The tags, or especially the chips on the tags, they're sensitive to mechanical stress. If you think about a vial filling line where you have then all the vials backing up, they're colliding with each other, and based on the rotation of the vial, the vial will collide with the chip. So we have this protective layer inside the label, which makes the label a bit thicker, but also protects the chip. Then sometimes we have the label going more than 360 degrees around the vial. So inside the chip, you have a second, or the other end of the label over the chip again. But that needs to be really tested. So we did really transport validations, sending products throughout the whole supply chain and back again, and then reading, checking, is it still readable? Do we have issues? Do we not have issues? I mentioned it earlier, cycle times of RFID labels. And this is graphics I just stole from the internet, but here you can see that depending on the write mechanism, there are two ways of writing to the tag. One is block write and one is write. And depending on the chip, the cycle times range. And if you're having very fast production lines, this may become an issue. And then one obvious, the other one not obvious. So the tag or the label design needs to be specific to the container. That makes perfect sense. You need to have a different label for a 20 ml vial compared to a 2 ml pre-filled syringe, because the radius is going to be different. The RFID label has more resistance to bending than a normal paper or polymer-based label. That's one challenge, but the other one, something for us totally unexpected, the reading capability or the quality or responsibility of reading is varying massively based on the substance inside the container. So a sodium chloride is, in terms of RFID reading, totally different to potassium chloride. So we have actually cases where we did need to design specific antenna designs for one or two specific products in one or two specific container types, because otherwise you couldn't read it in a reliable way. So as a summary, I'd like to say what's really important is that the RFID and the data matrix, they complement each other. The data matrix on the sellable unit, on the product, is a quick win, because this enables a lot of digitalization processes with nearly no effort. You're having most of the time, you're having the printing technology already. You don't need to have a fancy RFID system whatsoever. But there are cases where RFID provides additional benefits, because you don't need to take the product physically, look for a code, scan the code. You just put in one product, move it in front of a reader, or put bulk in or whatsoever. So it saves a lot of time and provides additional added value to the customer or to the patient or to the end user. Also, it allows automating processes. We have one scenario where it's about controlled substance handling. So controlled substance handling requires a lot of documentation because it's a controlled substance. And if you have a smart cabinet, let's say, where the end user logs onto the cabinet with username, password, or a badge or whatsoever, he takes whatever he needs from this cabinet, locks the cabinet again. The antennas inside the cabinet read all the RFID chips, and the antennas will be, or the system is able to tell which operator removed which products, which serial number, at what point in time. And also the other way around, if it's being returned. So it's very, very easy to document, especially in this case of controlled substances. For us, the important message is RFID solutions should be based on open standards. We're a generics company, so for us it's normal to work on, say, open source or standard available data. And for us, it's never been the question whether we use a proprietary RFID system, because this is a total vendor lock solution. In worst case, think about you having 3 bigger providers on the market. You're ending up with 3 SKUs, 1 for each provider. You can't exchange it anywhere. And with using the GS1 standard inside the tag, this is open for everyone. Everyone can use it. You can have new suppliers on the market, new concepts on the market, and there's nothing to change on the product itself. Yes, I mentioned it already. During the design implementation phase, you will have new obstacles and sometimes surprising obstacles. We had one in one of the most early batches. All of a sudden, reject rates increased dramatically, and everybody, of course, was nervous, searching. It turned out somebody placed a ladder next to the machine to fix something. But the aluminum ladder had an impact to the reading capability of the RFID reader inside the machine a meter away. That you never know. And at least for Fresenius Kabi, but I think that's true for other companies as well, so the range of RFID-enabled products is growing. We have right now we have about 40 products on the market or in the pipeline to be on the market, and that's going to grow because, at least for us, we see the demand is there. Right now, we know it only from US-based hospital because they have this process. But we, as I mentioned, for example, for controlled substances or other things, we see there's a use case for other things as well. And the solutions, the technical solutions, these smart cabinets or whatsoever, they're rather simple. That's nothing which needs to be totally integrated into a huge system landscape or whatsoever. You can use it offline if you want to. Yeah, so in case you're interested, I've added some 2 slides of further reference. So we have a website for Plus RFID, but we also have some case studies. We had a bigger case study with GS1, which was, I think, among the most read articles in the healthcare packaging magazine in the US. and also some companies which are using this. This is not to advertise anything, that's what we know which is on the market, just in case you're interested to look into it any further. And I would like to thank Vipotech OCS and VimaChem for giving me their slot so I can present this to you. And now I'm happy for your questions.
Any questions?
Sure.
Let's do the
Okay.
H for beauty.
Well,
Hassan.
on my side, is the solution working also for blisters?
We're not having blisters in this market, but why shouldn't it? I mean, yes, there will be a challenge with the aluminum foil, but
I can say it works because yesterday we were at a workshop at the Vincent, and they showed an RFID solution that can go in aluminum cans and all metal surfaces. It's a special type of label that you need to glue on top, but it works on metallic surfaces.
Okay.
Hassan?
More expensive.
Sorry. Hassan?
Cost of the tag, I mean, not only the label or tagging process or labeling process per product average.
so a cost of a tag or the additional cost of an RFID-enabled tag is in the lower two-digit cent values. So it's not, an RFID tag does no longer cost €1 or so, it's way, way less.
So I have one in a former life, sorry. You first.
So in the early days of serialization, so I would say 15 years ago or so, it was already considered to use RFID tags. There was always the discussion.
Yeah, Korea, I think, was one of the first.
Or should we use data matrix printing? And at that time, apart from the cost for the RFID tag, there were, if I recap correctly, 2 reasons, among others, not to use RFID. That was the mass reading capability, so the reliability to really read 100% of the objects. And the other constraint was reading the RFID tags if you have liquids. The objects that you have look like inside they have liquids.
Yes.
So therefore my question is, are these difficulties overcome? This means first of all, you can reliably apply and read the RFID tags on objects that contain liquids. And the other one, which is for use case important, is this mass reading problem, that not all objects are read. Is this resolved then as well today?
So for our products, yes. So I mentioned this, we have the specific tag design to some of the products, and this is to enable this. That's why we're also having this Axia Lab certification, because this certification challenges this as well. We can say what we're doing in our internal rework check process. We take a full box of shipper which contains around 250 vials, so 250 RFID tags. We put this in something like an oven, and it's reading all the tags. Yes, it works. And also the hospital cabinets from the solution providers we work with, they're saying it's working reliable. But some of them really insist of having your product certified by one of the labs, because they're also scared of the system not working reliably. So that's why there's these labs available which can do this certification for you.
Thank you. I was going in the same direction. In a former life, I was doing something, the same thing with an automotive company, and they're saying fluids and metal didn't make it 100%, and that's why they stopped it. So,
yeah.
But it seemed to, what I'm hearing here, that they will overcome this challenge, and now it's maybe a new time to look into it with the work you have done with VimaChem and Vipotech too, to see it is an alternative then.
And I mean, you also have to use metal for some scenarios. Imagine you have a production line with 20 bottles and you want to read this one bottle, then you're trying to apply as much shielding as possible to make sure that you're getting this one.
But the beauty is to getting more data and to automate things. I think that is the beauty, with less human interaction, to automate and get data out where you can get, or getting out and in. So it's definitely a worthwhile looking new into it. So maybe we are all, like, at least my launch level is much like Stefan yours, where he said not an option but interested, and definitely something worth to look into.
Yeah, what we're trying to avoid still is aggregate. But right now there's also not the necessity for this.
Crawl,
because,
walk, run.
Yeah.
You know, any other questions?
I don't know if you need to deactivate the product in the end as a result of data protection. Do you have these? How did you solve if is a yes?
No, so the products, when being dispensed, they don't need to be deactivated because it's not regulatory driven. But what needs to be done after writing the tag, you can lock the tag to prevent any additional change. So this is obviously what we're doing. So they're written once and then locked for any writing operations. But at the point of dispense, in the hospital, they're not doing anything with the tag or with the information.
I was asking about the protection of the information of the product regarding if the person uses that product or not. The protection of, how it's called, remain to be forgotten by the user. This normally is applied to clothes when they have RFIDs. At the store, you need to deactivate the RFIDs. So my question is if its product uses the same legislation or not.
So physically,
deactivate, yes. Normally the stores, when you have clothes, need to deactivate the RFID so nobody can scan the customer after he leaves the store.
No. Since these are hospital products, the remaining containers are dispensed or destroyed in the normal hospital procedures.
Okay, thank you.
With that, thank you very much.
Thank you.